In 1943, Howard Hughes unleashed a Western that would redefine Hollywood's relationship with censorship forever. The Outlaw wasn't just another cowboy flick. It was a calculated affront to the moral gatekeepers of American cinema, wrapped in gunfights and scandal. The film's troubles began before cameras even stopped rolling. Hughes had crafted something that blended traditional Western themes with unprecedented sexual content, centering the story around Jane Russell's provocative portrayal of Rio McDonald. The Hays office, Hollywood's moral watchdog, took one look at the finished product and demanded over 30 cuts. They weren't concerned about the gunplay. Russell's revealing costumes and the film's suggestive tone had crossed every line the censors had drawn. But Hughes, the eccentric billionaire filmmaker, had other plans. Rather than yield to the demands, he orchestrated one of Hollywood's most audacious publicity stunts. He allowed the film to be banned, then leaked word of the censorship battle to the press. Some speculate Hughes deliberately designed Russell's wardrobe to provoke outrage, knowing the controversy would generate more buzz than any traditional marketing campaign. The strategy ignited public curiosity. Audiences clamored to see what was deemed too risque for theaters. Religious groups denounced the picture. Several states prohibited it entirely, and Russell's costumes became emblems of Hollywood's ongoing clash with censorship. Rumors persist that Hughes spent more promoting the film's forbidden status than on its actual production. The Outlaw achieved something remarkable. It transformed a Western into the most talked-about forbidden film of the decade, proving that sometimes the greatest scandal makes for the biggest box office draw. When Duel in the Sun hit screens in 1946, the Western genre had rarely seen such a provocative mix of sensuality, violence, and racial tension. Producer David O. Selznick's epic quickly earned the nickname Lust in the Dust, and it stuck. The film's love triangle between Jennifer Jones's Pearl Chavez, Gregory Peck's Lute McCandless, and Joseph Cotton's Jesse challenged Hollywood's boundaries. Religious groups condemned its sexual content and interracial romance, while the Production Code Administration demanded extensive edits. Pearl, portrayed as half Native American and half white, embodied the censors' fears, a non-white woman expressing desire without shame. Several states banned the film, and Selznick was forced to create multiple versions to appease regional censors. The climactic shootout between Pearl and Lute shocked audiences with its graphic intensity, unusual for a major studio Western. Despite the backlash, Duel in the Sun was a box office juggernaut, earning over $20 million and 2 Oscar nominations. Its defiance of racial and sexual taboos exposed the production code's contradictions and proved that controversy could drive profits. Some theaters reportedly screened uncut versions after hours, capitalizing on the film's forbidden allure. In 1954, Nicholas Ray delivered a Western that would divide audiences and critics like a thunderclap. Johnny Guitar wasn't just another cowboy tale. It was a psychological firestorm wrapped in Technicolor that dared to upend every Western convention. Joan Crawford's Vienna stood at the center of this upheaval, wielding power and defiance in ways that made conservative viewers shift uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the typical saloon girl waiting for rescue. Vienna owned her establishment, controlled her fate, and faced down enemies with a steely resolve that defied 1950s gender norms. Crawford's fierce portrayal turned the traditional Western heroine into something far more formidable. The film's emotional intensity cut deeper than any gunshot. Ray crafted scenes charged with Freudian tension, where the real battles played out in verbal duels between Vienna and her nemesis Emma Small, played by Mercedes McCambridge. Their rivalry burned with a ferocity that made traditional shootouts seem quaint. European censors balked at the film's subversive themes. Spain banned it outright under Franco's regime, while other countries imposed strict edits, viewing its portrayal of female dominance and political undertones as too incendiary. Critics initially dismissed the film's stylized violence and emotional rawness. Its underwhelming box office performance in America disappointed studio heads, though Crawford's career continued with other notable roles. French New Wave critics, however, saw something revolutionary in Ray's vision. By the 1960s, directors like François Truffaut hailed Johnny Guitar as a masterpiece of psychological cinema, transforming its legacy from misunderstood oddity to feminist classic that redefined the Western. Marlon Brando's 1961 directorial debut, defied Western norms with a level of psychological depth rarely seen in the genre. One-Eyed Jacks emerged from a chaotic production that saw its budget balloon from $1.8 million to $6 million, with Brando rewriting scenes on the fly and clashing with Paramount executives over his uncompromising vision. The film's violence, though restrained by today's standards, pushed boundaries for its time. The infamous whipping scene, where Brando's character Rio endures brutal punishment from a former ally, created palpable discomfort for audiences used to clear-cut heroes. Some believe the scene mirrored Brando's own method-acting exploration of betrayal and vengeance. Studio executives grew uneasy with the film's brooding tone. They cut over an hour of footage before release, concerned about pacing and commercial appeal. Paramount had expected a traditional Western hero. Brando delivered a morally ambiguous anti-hero consumed by revenge. Critics offered mixed reviews, focusing on the film's uneven pacing rather than its thematic boldness. Rio's character blurred the line between hero and villain, challenging Hollywood's established moral codes. Brando's intense performance, rooted in psychological realism, felt unsettlingly authentic. Though it faltered at the box office, One-Eyed Jacks later earned recognition as a pioneering work. Film scholars now credit it with influencing directors like Sam Peckinpah and helping shift the Western toward darker, more introspective storytelling. In 1952, a Western hit theaters that would ignite more political controversy than any gunfight on screen. High Noon wasn't just divisive. It was a cinematic flashpoint that exposed the raw nerves of Cold War America. The film's real-time structure, unfolding over 85 minutes as Marshal Will Kane confronts his fate, shattered genre expectations. Audiences anticipating heroic shootouts were met with a tense meditation on moral isolation. When violence finally erupted, it felt stark and unromanticized. Behind the scenes, screenwriter Carl Foreman faced scrutiny from the House Un-American Activities Committee due to his past Communist Party ties. The irony was striking. A man writing about betrayal and abandonment was being ostracized by his own industry. Conservative critics saw the film as a veiled critique of McCarthyism. John Wayne famously called it the most un-American thing I've ever seen. Some theater owners reportedly avoided screening it, though the film still found commercial success. Gary Cooper's weary, solitary figure became a lasting symbol of moral courage. The Academy took notice. High Noon won 4 Oscars, including Best Actor for Cooper. The film proved that Westerns could be more than shootouts. They could be mirrors reflecting society's deepest anxieties. Arthur Penn's 1958 film The Left-Handed Gun delivered a psychological jolt that left Hollywood executives scrambling. Paul Newman's Billy the Kid wasn't the charming outlaw audiences expected. He was a twitchy, emotionally fractured killer whose violent outbursts felt disturbingly real. Adapting Gore Vidal's television play, Penn crafted a film that made traditional Western fans recoil. Its raw portrayal of murder and mental instability triggered immediate controversy. Though not officially banned, the film's dark tone made theater owners hesitant to book it. Newman's intense, method-driven performance polarized critics. What truly unsettled viewers wasn't just the violence. It was the existential despair woven into every scene. This wasn't a world of white hats and justice, but one where redemption felt out of reach. The film's bleak moral landscape alienated mainstream audiences, and its box office failure nearly derailed Penn's career. Yet over time, scholars recognized its influence. The Left-Handed Gun helped lay the groundwork for the revisionist westerns that would dominate the coming decades, proving that even commercial flops can reshape a genre. Samuel Fuller's 40 Guns thundered into theaters in 1957, delivering a western that flipped gender roles and amplified violence in ways that made Hollywood take notice. Barbara Stanwyck commanded the screen as Jessica Drummond, a cattle baroness leading 40 armed men, a sight that shattered traditional expectations. Fuller's camera work matched the story's intensity. Gunfights erupted with rapid editing and close-ups, capturing the chaos with unsettling realism. This wasn't the stylized violence of earlier westerns. Fuller delivered raw frontier warfare. The Production Code Administration demanded edits, particularly scenes exploring Jessica's complex relationship with power. Stanwyck's character sparked debate. Some hailed her as a groundbreaking female figure, while others questioned her departure from conventional femininity. The film's mix of sexual tension and violence made international distributors wary. Rumors suggest Fuller crafted 40 guns to test Hollywood's limits. His gamble paid off. The film gained a cult following among fans craving more daring westerns. Its legacy endures as one of the era's boldest reimaginings of gender and violence on the frontier. Gregory Peck's icy glare cut through the screen in 1958, but this wasn't the noble figure audiences knew from To Kill a Mockingbird. In the Bravados, Peck played Jim Douglas, a man consumed by vengeance after his wife's murder. 20th Century Fox executives knew they were pushing limits. The film's stark violence and cold executions challenged the genre's norms. Douglas methodically hunted down 4 suspects, showing no mercy. Critics were unsettled by this anti-hero who resembled an executioner more than a lawman. Though approved by the production code, the film's portrayal of vigilante justice raised eyebrows. Reviews note its psychological depth and bleak moral tone. For 1958 audiences used to clear-cut heroes, it was a jarring shift. Yet the controversy only fueled interest. The Bravados became a box office hit, paving the way for grittier westerns in the 60s. Peck's performance helped establish a new archetype, the morally conflicted protagonist who would dominate the genre's evolution. In 1953, Shane arrived with a sound that changed everything. Director George Stevens used innovative techniques to make gunshots feel startlingly real, firing weapons into garbage cans and experimenting with acoustics to create bone-rattling blasts. Audiences and critics took notice. Where earlier westerns featured theatrical pops, Shane's gunfire felt final and brutal. This technical leap marked a shift from sanitized violence to something more visceral. Jack Palance's villain, Wilson, added to the film's intensity. His cold, calculated violence stood out in a genre known for flamboyant antagonists. Palance's performance became iconic, pushing the boundaries of screen villainy. The Academy recognized Shane with 6 Oscar nominations. Its blend of realism and artistry sparked debate about violence in cinema. Shane helped pave the way for the grittier westerns of the 60s, as the production code's grip began to loosen. By 1962, Hollywood's polished cowboys were riding into the sunset. Sam Peckinpah's Ride the High Country marked a turning point, introducing moral ambiguity that made studio heads uneasy. The film's depiction of attempted assault and its portrayal of aging gunfighters confronting irrelevance broke from the noble frontier myths of earlier decades. MGM demanded cuts to scenes they found too intense, but Peckinpah's vision still came through. A West where heroes were flawed and violence had weight. Unlike earlier westerns with clear moral lines, this film explored corruption and redemption in a world painted in shades of gray. Though initially overlooked at the box office, critics later praised its depth and realism. Ride the High Country became a blueprint for the revisionist westerns that followed. Its mature themes and anti-heroic characters helped usher in a new era of frontier storytelling, where complexity replaced simplicity and the myth of the West was finally questioned. In 1954, Vera Cruz exploded onto screens with a level of cynicism and brutality that caught audiences off guard. Starring Burt Lancaster and Gary Cooper, the film featured mercenaries whose shifting loyalties and ruthless behavior shattered the genre's moral compass. Director Robert Aldrich delivered a western where greed trumped honor. Lancaster's smirking anti-hero and Cooper's morally compromised soldier for hire blurred the lines between good and evil. Massacres unfolded without redemption, and betrayal was the norm. European censors reacted strongly, with some countries imposing cuts or restrictions. While not banned outright, the film's depiction of colonial exploitation and unflinching violence struck a nerve, especially in post-war Europe. Despite, or perhaps because of, its controversy, Vera Cruz was a box office hit. Its gritty tone and moral ambiguity directly influenced the spaghetti westerns of the 1960s, particularly those by Sergio Leone. Aldrich's vision proved that westerns could be both commercially successful and thematically daring. Richard Brooks' 1966 film The Professionals shattered long-standing western conventions, ushering in a new era for the genre. Instead of the traditional tales of heroism and clear-cut morality, Brooks presented a story where self-interest and survival took center stage. Starring Lee Marvin, Burt Lancaster, and Claudia Cardinal, the film followed a group of mercenaries whose motivations were rooted in profit rather than principle, a stark departure from the noble cowboys of earlier westerns. Gone were the days of upright heroes riding into town to save the day. In their place stood hardened men, shaped by a world where violence was blunt, loyalty was transactional, and morality was anything but clear. The film's unflinching depiction of brutality and its deeply cynical worldview unsettled audiences who had grown accustomed to the cleaner, more idealistic narratives of the past. Rather than reiterate earlier concerns about censorship, it is notable that international distributors reportedly faced significant pressure due to the film's anti-establishment tone. Despite this, the professionals managed to avoid the outright bans that plagued other controversial westerns of the era, allowing it to reach a wide audience. Despite some backlash from traditionalists, the film was both a critical and commercial success, earning 3 Academy Award nominations and performing strongly at the box office. Its popularity signaled a shift in audience appetite, revealing a growing interest in more complex, morally ambiguous stories. Ultimately, The Professional stands as a pivotal turning point, marking the Western's transition from mythic simplicity to a new, gritty realism that would define the genre for years to come. The Man from Laramie hit theaters in August 1955, bringing with it a moment that redefined the limits of on-screen violence in westerns. Anthony Mann's film featured what many consider one of the most jarring scenes of the era, the deliberate shooting of James Stewart's character's hand. Though restrained by modern standards, the scene shocked mid-50s audiences. Stewart's Will Lockhart endures the ordeal with the camera lingering on his reaction, a bold departure from the quick-cut violence typical of the time. The prosthetic effects, while modest, gave the moment a disturbing realism that left viewers visibly shaken. Interestingly, the film passed through the Production Code Administration without major resistance. While critics debated the scene's intensity, no significant censorship or boycotts followed. The film performed well commercially, not because of controversy, but due to its compelling storytelling. What set The Man from Laramie apart was its psychological depth. Mann and Stewart's collaboration marked a shift toward morally complex characters, helping usher in a new era of westerns that explored darker, more introspective themes. Some argue this film laid groundwork for later, more graphic westerns like The Wild Bunch, though Mann's influence was part of a broader trend toward realism in the genre. The film proved westerns could tackle serious themes without abandoning the genre's core, signaling a quiet but powerful evolution in Hollywood storytelling. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.